Hello and welcome to Sandwiched on Gypsy Radio. I'm your host, Becky Nelson. Thank you so much for joining in today. Working on my visual platform. Wow, that's a whole different level of podcasting. So, thank you so much for your patience and your understanding and your viability as I learn and navigate this. I am being mentored. It's about a 90-day program. I'm doing real good on staying on task. It's the most terrifying yet exhilarating experience. It's pretty fun to be able to reach out to people as social media platforms start to get locked down again as we get closer to the election, and us conservative extremists, we just don't seem to be able to get our voice out. So, this is a method to be able to chat with people on Freedom Friday and talk a little bit about what's going on in our society, locally and statewide and federally. At the end of the day, I'm not here to persuade you or talk you into voting for somebody that you don't want to vote for, but I do want to educate you on some of the things that I've learned and spent energy on. So, without any further ado, let's talk a little bit about current events and what happened this past week. So, let's see, we had a lot of fun things go on locally here. We went to a city council meeting and tried to energize the community to talk a little bit about non-sanctuary city home rule, some of the different things that can happen when you put a little bit more of a barrier around your community from big governments, kind of like an autonomy event that you would have to kind of put in place through being putting it on the ballot and being a votable item to be home rule. And we're not even sure we really want home rule. We just want to learn about it, understand it, educate ourselves. Most importantly, I believe that non-sanctuary or some kind of restriction against unvetted, undocumented illegals is very important right now for the preservation of your community. And I'm not going to fight about it with people that think that it's a humanitarian effort. Later on in this podcast, I'm going to give you an example of a humanitarian effort that left a 20-some-year-old young lady from Sangamon County dead. So we'll talk about that in a few seconds. Um, Trump launched a gold shoe at Sneaker Con. This is a convention for shoes. And it went over pretty well. I know that there was some liberal lashback, but the way I look at it is buy a Biden shoe, right? I mean, why are you so mad about Trump making a shoe? I thought it was hilarious, and they were starting to come out of the woodwork on that. At the same token, you got New York AG basically fining Trump $365 million and threatening to take his buildings away, threatening to, well, actually ruling, the judge ruled for him not to be able to do business in New York for 3 years. As far as I'm concerned, I'd roll up the rug and get the hell out of there, but that's just me. At the same time, you got Mayor Adams over there on the East Coast. And keep in mind, when we see this kind of stuff in these big cities, big blue cities, we're going to see it in our city too. They are trying to give these. Well, actually, he made a deal. He made a deal with one of his equity racial profiled companies, banks, to fund the migrants' money for food because they were tired of the food that they were getting. They were not getting good food. They weren't, it wasn't greasy enough, apparently. And there was a flashback to Mayor de Blasio when he was offering French fries and hamburgers to American citizens for getting a vaccine that had a success rate of about 3% from the flu, fundamentally leaving a lot of people in a worse shape than they were before they got jabbed. So that's kind of a rundown of what's going on from a federal level. There's all kinds of Supreme Court stuff going on. Jurisdictionally speaking, in Illinois, we had Pritzker go on the air and talk about how he was going to give millions of dollars to the migrants. In the meantime, you've got kids, my kids' age, that, I talked to him about housing this week. Very interesting conversation. He says, Mom, we can't look away from the smaller condominium, townhouse, apartment setups. We have to have them because houses are just not affordable for kids my age. But on the flip side, I reminded him that a lot of his friends like to buy nice cars, live in their mom's basement, game, and go to the bars. So where's the discipline? I mean, there's a conversation there that needs to be had. And he was willing to have it with me. We agreed to disagree, and that's it. So election season is here. March 19th is the official date of the election if we were doing it the old school way, but we're not. So there's 40 some days in between. The last day to request a vote by mail ballot is on March 3rd, and those need to be postmarked March 19th as well as returned to the clerk's hot little hands by April 2nd. So um, it's going to be an interesting election. We have a lot of things going on. So keep your head on a swivel and just remember when you're looking for information on candidates, the best way to look is to look back. Look back on their history of their social media, look back on their history of voting if they've ever had a position in office where they vote. Just look back because they can tell you whatever they want to tell you. But at the end of the day, their actions speak louder than words. I'll leave it at that. Um, Super Bowl celebration turned to chaos because we had a shooting in Kansas City, Missouri. Um, Kansas City has gun-free zones, so the stadium was gun-free, but the criminals didn't agree with that. So they came out blazing, and 800 police officers who were on duty that day, surrounding the parameters of all the elites inside. None of them really got a chance to stop the shooters. All the shooters were apprehended either by surrendering or the actual fans stopped a shooter. So we don't know the race of the shooters. I mean, we have some speculation, but they haven't come out and really talked about it. We don't have any motive, but at the end of the day, one young lady did succumb to her injuries, and I believe there were several people injured. At the beginning of the broadcast, when they first started talking about it, they said there were 20 people shot, but I believe that they have now downsized that. Not that that makes it any better. I think it was 8 people, and then the remaining of them were trampled or injured during the evacuation of the stadium. That being said, the most hypocritical part of this is all of the elites that were inside on the stage. They were taken to buses and surrounded by AR-15s to remain safe. And at the end of the day, your regular elite fans of the elites were left to hang and fend for themselves. So when you have your left liberal elites telling you to get rid of your firearms and to you know take into consideration that you'll be protected by your police and all that. At the end of the day, people, their private security, I assume, surrounded these buses and kept them safe until they could get them out safe. They were evacuated from stages. Nobody ran to those particular injured. They ran to the buses. So these are the people that stand on stage and tell you how to vote and tell you how to live your life, and then they jump in a bus and they're surrounded by the exact same tools to keep them safe that they are telling you you can't have. Okay, we'll move on. Springfield, Illinois. I want to talk a little bit about a young lady who grew up in Sangamon County. Her name is Emma Schaefer. Emma Schaefer. And Emma was raised in a very empath family, very much a nature loving family. Her mother was involved in the creation of a park in their community. I found some information about her being part of a lot of these green energy type groups. She was also into the Sangamon County animal protective programs. ASP, that's the one that collects all the dogs that are being abused and gets them either humanitarian efforts in terms of getting them back on their feet or get them adopted. In any regard, Emma was living that liberal life. And Emma got tied up with a dude that was in her community. I believe he went to school at her college. I'm not verifying that quite yet, but his name was Gabriel Calixto Picardo. And Gabriel was brought to the United States of America illegally at the age of 5 by his mother. So his mama brought him into the United States, using the open border policy that we've seen for many, many years, some thicker than thieves, and some years it wasn't. He was brought here at the age of 5. Um, and he got an opportunity to be a DACA kid. He had an opportunity. He went to school, and he could have thrived, and he could have been this great kid who made strides in the American citizenship. But at the end of the day, he broke the law when he was 15, and he had a federal offense. And as a Mexican illegal migrant, he was forced to relinquish any potential path to citizenship. That didn't mean that he was sent home. He wasn't sent home. He was put into some of our juvie homes, and then he was released. And then he did some other naughty stuff in 2021. And the court district in Illinois, Southern District of Illinois, they went ahead and sentenced him to 6 years. His sentence was reduced, I believe, to 3. And at the end of the day, he got out and he created this relationship with Emma Schaefer. Emma and him dated for a little while, on and off. But at the end of the day, her family says that she was just helping him, that she had been raised to recognize inequities. So he was an inequity. So Emma was his friend. Um, they must have had a dispute or something because in the year of 2023, Emma was murdered by this gentleman, and he stabbed her to death. He didn't even use one of our guns that they want to take away from us. He stabbed her to death. She was 24, and I believe he was 23. The Sangamon County report says that it happened about midnight in Springfield, where she lived. And he didn't even call the police. He had a member of his family in another country call and say, "Hey, something happened bad. You need to get there." So the reason I bring up Emma is because we are in this bubble of empathy for these people, these illegals that are crossing our border and taking up space in our communities. We are at an empathy crosspath. The people that are telling you to be empath, to be passionate and humanitarian towards these folks, they will be the ones to take the first bites from the snake. I'm just going to say it. Okay. Now, let me retract that to the point where if you have a family who comes here and they seek asylum and they have a legitimate asylum case and they are willing to go to work and start being great people in the community and they're sponsored by a church or an NGO, that is not my problem. That is not your problem. That is their problem. Good on them. Okay. These are the people that aren't seeking asylum. These are undocumented. And in Gabrielle's case, he had a chance to a path to citizenship and he screwed it up at the age of 15. But because of the state of Illinois being so lax, so absolutely lax on these illegals and their actions, they literally let him stay and do more damage and more damage. We could talk about Kathy O'Brien. She was another victim of his. They dated and they got close, and then she must have decided that, Gabriel wasn't all that in a bag of tricks. So she broke up with him. He shows up, he puts a gun to her head, he takes her to a hotel, he rapes her consistently. She basically becomes a passive victim. At the end of the day, he's arrested and then he's released on a lesser charge. So this guy had history. And when you think about all the people that you are getting in this country, it doesn't matter if you get one Gabriel Calixto Picardo or you get 1 million Gabriel Calixto Picardo. There's going to be a victim and it's going to be somebody of innocence. Now, when you are looking at this perspective, this is why the Republicans are so adamant about closing the border. The damage is done, which is here. So now we have to mitigate. But when they do harm, and they break the law, they should be returned to their countries of origin. They should not be locked up. They should not be released on recognizance. They should be sent away. They've done damage. They've ruined their chance to path to citizenship. And there's 60% of those that are in that bucket. That's according to the Resurrection Project. 60% are undocumented. They cannot get a path to citizenship because something is not right about their vetting process. We need to know who they are, and we need to know that they're going back. They need to go back. And under President Trump, I would assure you, President Trump would not go after the ones that are actually here for asylum, need the support. They're going to get on their feet right away. They're going to be good people. He's going to go after the M14 gang leaders. He's going to go after the ones that come in here with mental abuse issues. He's going to go after the ones that are domestically harming women. He's going to go after those people. So vote accordingly and vote as if elections have consequences. Even though Emma Schaefer was a liberal, I don't blame her for that. I believe she was raised in a community where they thought they were doing the right thing. What I blame her for is the fact that she didn't have a chance to speak out against Gabriel Calixto Picardo because she was too busy trying to help this inequality in our society, this false narrative that we have to give more love and support to somebody who doesn't look like us. And we don't have to worry about their character. Their character doesn't count anymore. Just give them what they need because they're they're inequity. They're inequity. We have to recognize that and we have to express that. We are in a situation, folks, where if you have ever had the opportunity to speak to people honestly and integrally about this kind of scenario, such as Gabriel Calixto Picardo, do it. Take this story and spread it like wildfire. Because wait until you hear the punchline in this story. So when I was researching Gabriel Calixto Picardo, I came across a Instagram post from him. And guess who he's standing with? Senator Dick Durbin. And it reads like this: Thank you, Senator Dick Durbin, for all you do for the immigrant community. And this fella is standing with Dick Durbin on July 13th, I believe, of last year. Can't guarantee it. But this same guy who stood with Dick Durbin, who got off on a 6 year sentence that was reduced for his first offense, his first big offense after being a juvenile, and was left here to do more damage. Somebody who would be running for senator in the state of Illinois against Dick Durbin should have this as like a big poster. Blood on your hands, Dick. I mean, the young lady, Emma Schaefer, bless her heart, she worked for Tammy Duckworth's office as an intern. Blood on your hands, Tammy Duckworth. You voted for the Safety Act. You two literally murdered Emma Schaefer due to your political regime and your narrative and your innuendos and your ridiculousness about inequities. Inequities. She even puts it in one of her Instagram posts about inequities and how it means so much to her to respect all, to love all. Well, you love this guy, didn't work out so well for you. And I hate to say it, but there's going to be a lot more Emma Schaefers that you're going to read about. Or maybe you won't read about them because they'll probably start to conceal them. But Emma Schaefer was the ex girlfriend of a DACA gone wrong boy, a DACA gone wrong boy. And even though she volunteered for the Sierra Club and the Resister Sisterhood, and the Sangamon County State's Attorney's Office knew her, um, through her ministries and her downtown efforts in Springfield. She worked in the House of Representatives for these Democrats. They passed laws that murdered Emma. They passed laws that murdered Emma. Literally, that is the message we should be saying. And I'm sorry, but Dick Durbin he's got blood on his hands on this one. And if I was in media, if I was a journalist, I'd ask him about it. I'd be like, hey, Dick, tell us about Emma Schaefer. Tell us about Gabriel, the one that you're in an Instagram post with. What's his story? What does he mean? Thank you for taking care of the immigrants. Looks to me like you took care of a murderer. Sorry, that's literally what I see here. So, anyway, a little bit of a shorter podcast today. You can tell I'm a little fired up. Moral of the story is don't let anyone tell you you're wrong when you are explaining your position on your Second Amendment rights. Because if someone said to me tomorrow, well, these guns are dangerous, I'd say, yes, they are. Oh my gosh, they are so dangerous. Mine sits in a safe like 24/7, 365. So dangerous. And that same gun that provided protection of the elites, the Kansas City Chief elites that ran from the stage to the buses, not out in the parking lot to help people, but to their buses, that's the one that would protect you. That's the one that would protect you. But you can't have it. You can't have it, folks, because the government says you just can't. But the elites got it. The elites got protection. So make it make sense. And when it comes to Emma Schaefer, she was an activist. She was working with the liberal regime. I don't blame her for that. She was very young and very jaded. But inequities was the word that threw me for a loop, because in her Instagram, she talks about how, she embraces inequities. This was in 2021, embracing inequities. And what were they doing back then? They were telling all these kids in college that you have to live and love and be cherishable of these Black Lives Matter and all these different racial equities. And at the end of the day, that killed her. That killed her. This gentleman killed her. And she can't come back from it. And her family should be screaming from the mountaintops. You know what? They're not. They had a candle visual and nothing was brought up. Dick Durbin wasn't brought up. Tammy Duckworth wasn't brought up. It is what it is. Moving on, right? That's all we do. We just move on. We don't say anything. So, folks, when you're voting, remember Emma Schaefer. Remember all the different things that you can change with your voice and a stroke of a pen on a ballot. That's it for Freedom Friday. Have yourself a good afternoon. We'll talk soon.